Would you actually know how to measure AI's impact on your business? Things that one of my coaches talks about is that what you focus on expands. And so as you're implementing AI into your business, you're going to need to know the numbers. You're going to need to know what to measure, how to measure, because you don't want to be wasting money and wasting time in this initiative.
Welcome to the Roofing Success Podcast. I'm Jim Aline, and I'm here to bring you insights from top leaders in the roofing industry to help you grow and scale your roofing business.
We're back with the AI Master Series for roofing. I'm Jim Aline, the host of the Roofing Success Podcast, and I'm here with Rosalind Burgess from the AI Roofing Revolution. And today we're going to talk about AI math. We're going to talk about setting goals, tracking metrics. We're going to talk about measuring progress.
Yeah.
Roz, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me here, Jim. Yeah. I'm excited to talk about math today.
This can be a big problem for contractors, right?
Yeah.
It's a big problem in all business when you don't know your numbers.
Yes.
Right. And so you put an initiative in place as an owner, and you're like, how come that didn't get done?
Yeah.
And your team's like, but we did do something. And you're like, yeah, but you didn't do the right thing. No, but wait.
Yeah.
So metrics become extremely important. So yeah, especially in the implementation of AI.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit. How should a company define AI success? Let's start with that.
Yeah. I love it. Well, one thing that we always say too on the coaching side is you measure what matters, right? And so you really want to focus your measurements and your KPIs around what's going to be important to you as an organization. So I'll take us back to that very first session of how do you know what's important to you as an organization? Well, it should be aligned to your overall business objectives, right? Those numbers that you're already trying to move the dial on, that's where you should be focusing your AI efforts and energy. And so similarly, we should be looking at metrics that are related to the same things that we're trying to move the needle on. And if you think about any good business practice, right, typically we are looking at what are the time savings that we're trying to get from AI? Because I'm guessing when you came up with your AI strategy, there was probably something that you were hoping to save in, reduce cost on, reduce time on, right? And so I would start by coming back to your initial AI strategy and what you were hoping to accomplish. A great sentence that you can use is, we're using AI to do what, right? So fill in the blank of like, I'm using AI to do something. And the result I expect to have is what, right? By when. So if you kind of have, I want to go from X to Y by when, a great business formula that we use a lot in general. If you start to think about your AI goals and your initiatives that you're trying to accomplish, and you apply that same kind of sentence formula, I think you're going to have a great success in identifying which metrics you should be measuring, what outcome you're trying to get to. And so that'll kind of help lead you down the road a little bit. So for example, let's say we're thinking, okay, well, we want to use AI in order to write job descriptions or job postings. And we expect to save 20% of time by doing this. So normally this practice took a certain amount of time. We think we're going to get a cost or a time savings of 20%, let's say, or whatever X percent your percent is. And by when? Like, how long is it going to take for you to achieve that desired outcome? So I think that's a great starting formula that we can use to start to place which objectives we want to measure. So I'm thinking about things like time savings, cost. I'm often thinking about the revenue impact as a major item that we should be calculating, right? So what do I expect to gain by utilizing this? How will it help me win more? How will it help me keep more? And how will it help me do more, right? Or change more are kind of some key thoughts that you can have around the revenue side of things. Additional metrics that we should be looking at, because we know AI has a tendency to hallucinate, to have failures, have breakdowns. Like if you're adding a new initiative to your AI to your AI goals, right, that you're trying to do, or you're using AI to accomplish something new, let's say, we should also be looking at how often does it have success? Is it failing, or is it working most of the time? Right. So that's another area that I would think is pretty common that we should be looking at. And then the fourth one I would say is looking at your overall risk and resilience. Right. So what did this cost to implement it? What kind of risk are we running up against if we use this? If it fails, what kind of negative outcome could that have as we're looking at adding this AI tool or process?
I could see that, especially in adding a tool, right? Or a different software into the mix, or changing software because you feel that there's specific AI features in the new software. Like there's a risk that it will work or not still, right? Or the error rate in that software.
Yeah.
You said tied to company goals, and we talked about the SWOT analysis on a previous episode.
Yeah.
Is that where they're kind of getting their AI? That's where we're getting the AI goals from, right? Is going through there, determining what the best initiatives are. Let's give a couple of more detailed examples of maybe around a metric for. I like customer satisfaction also, right?
Yeah.
Errors reduced. So what would be an example maybe around maybe the reduction in errors in ordering or something like that, right?
Yep. Yeah. So for example, you could say, okay, well, we used to do our invoicing and pricing, and let's say maybe typically we would have on a monthly basis, around like $2,000 in error costs, right? Because, just through the invoicing process or through job costing or whatever, we typically end up hitting about $2,000 in error that we're having to account for on our books. Okay. Now that was our prior to adding AI. Once we've added AI into that initiative, maybe AI is going through and it's helping to check, right? And it's doing some of that quality control for us. Now, if we've shifted and we have a monthly reduction down to just $500, we would have $1,500 of savings, quality that we're recuperating through using that AI process.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You got to know your numbers.
This
is a problem for most. This is a problem for most, is knowing their numbers. So, understanding your baseline and how to set your KPIs is going to be a very impactful thing. What type of dashboards should they say? Should they set up dashboards? Should they what's an executive dashboard maybe that they could be looking at? Or would you go initiative by initiative?
Yeah, probably both.
Okay.
Right. So I would think about it in terms of, again, what are you trying to accomplish? A lot of us are used to doing maybe some type of L10 or monthly meeting. If you're not doing that, I really recommend you identify kind of your key priorities and get some metrics around those. But for those of you who are not familiar with that practice, basically what you're going to do is you're going to have a weekly meeting with your team based on your overall goals for the year, ideally broken down into quarters and into months, kind of showing you what you're trying to track toward, right? So that's just a high level, what you'd be discussing on a weekly basis are the key metrics that are moving you toward that goal. So if I'm thinking about the AI side of things, again, I would come back to what is my desire and what's my role? So we talked about roles kind of in the past too, as you're reimagining the organization and the org chart. And I want to remind us that when it comes to AI strategy, that should really be held at the owner leader level, right? And so from the owner leader level, a metric I might be paying attention to and that I would want on my dashboard, my personal dashboard, would be things like active users of AI, right? If I've got some type of initiative that I want my organization to be using AI across the board, I'd want to be paying attention to what is the number of active users? How is adoption by role going? I might be looking at completion of training. Maybe I've invested in some type of AI training program. Maybe you're connected with the AIR team and you're utilizing our AI tools. And so you might be looking at, okay, well, how much of my team members are actually going through and learning and understanding how to use the tools. Now, I would also say you want to really be looking at your financial numbers as well, because again, on that owner leader level, you should be thinking about your financial investment and your strategy. I think one of the studies that we saw is that 3 out of 4 business owners recognize that AI is a necessary and important part of their competitive strategy going forward. But I wonder how many of them actually are taking time to slow down and measure their success of their adoption, right? And so and then the cost of that. So it becomes really important to look at how much you're investing into your tools and then what you're actually getting back out of them. And so from that, you're kind of using almost like a multi-step formula, right? Where you want to first be looking at your baseline and then your after AI for your initiative. And so to answer your very specific question of, should we be looking at it by project? I would say absolutely. There's kind of an infamous MIT study out that talks about 95% of AI initiatives fail. People who are in AI have a lot of thoughts about that. So I'm going to park our feelings about it. But let's just say, even if that were fully true and that was the case for every single one, what that study points to is a lot of kind of haphazard use of AI and not having a strategic process about how you're going about AI. It talks about not actually piloting and properly testing AI workflows and practices that you're using. And so when you're just kind of like throwing something in there and then you're not actually doing the practice of measuring that result, I think there's no opportunity then for you as an owner to be able to understand and assess your financial gain. You need to have a baseline before you can even be able to figure out what your gains are. So, if you've already started adding AI to a practice, well, you're going to need to go backward and start to do some type of time capacity study. Refinery actually is a great tool that I can share with anyone who's watching, and I'll kind of include as just a giveaway as part of our package. And so we've got a great time capacity tool that you can go through and kind of assess how long does a certain task take. So what you want to measure is not just the time that it takes to complete the task, but also the frequency, because that's going to become really important for your formula later as well. So we're going to start with what's our baseline. Okay, maybe, writing those job descriptions. That's a nice, easy one in the HR world. So, you all should be writing your job descriptions anyway. So let's say I'm writing my job description and that used to take me, maybe an hour to go through. And then maybe actually another, as I think about it more in detail, I wrote it for an hour. It took me an hour to write it, but then I went and I, talked to Jim to make sure it was aligned. And then I sat down with my team members and I made sure they didn't have any additional input. And so when it was all said and done, it took maybe a couple of hours, right? And now through AI, I can get that process done in 5 minutes, right? So I had my baseline of a couple of hours. I still am probably going to go and have those conversations. So I need to make sure I'm accounting for those. So it's not just like straight 5 minutes. I want to be realistic and honest about the actual gains. I know it gets exciting to try to say like, oh, I did it in 5 minutes. And it's like, okay, but did it actually take that long? And so I want you to really be thinking about still what were the additional steps that happened. And maybe you can get it done faster though through other pieces of AI. This is where we talked about kind of that compounding, right? Now I took that feedback from my team and I used AI to translate that and run it back through. Now I'm getting compounding efforts. And so that's why, again, you want to be able to look at the workflow, figure out how long it took before, and then how long is it honestly taking now with the additional steps, not just one step of the process. And so then once I have that, I can take, so I've got my rate before, my time after, and then I think about the person who's doing that task, right? And their hourly rate. And this is your fully loaded hourly rate. So I want to be mindful of that, right? Again, I know a lot of math here. We're bringing in a lot of variables, but it's an important part of the formula. So if my normal rate is $50 an hour, but I also, you pay me for benefits and you pay a bonus and you do all these extra things for me, training, etc. That's my fully loaded rate. And for most roles, just kind of, again, HR math for you, most of your employees costs you 1.5 times their base hourly rate. So you can take that, right? And now, okay, I'm at like $1.50 for, let's say, per hour. And then I would multiply that by my time saved in order to get my cost. Okay, so now I've got one activity. But if I write that job description, now this is the frequency task piece of it, right? Or frequency element of the equation. So now if I do that from a frequency standpoint of, let's say I write 15 job descriptions in a year, it's going to be that time savings times that 15. And that's going to be my actual savings.
Your actual yearly savings.
Uh-huh.
I think, I come from the marketing world and there's a lot of vanity metrics that happen in the marketing world. Like,
what?
Oh, you're ranking number 1 for, and look at all the traffic we got you for this or that. But it doesn't produce the outcome that you're looking for. And that's the most important part, is that outcome. What kind of vanity metrics do you think are going to, our contractors or business owners going to run into as they're implementing this in their business?
Yeah, I think one thing to be careful of, again, is where you're getting that information. Like if you added an AI tool that's maybe coming from a third-party provider, I would be cautious and ask them to maybe explain to you how they did their calculation, because I think there's going to be opportunity if you don't see the metrics yourself and kind of have a good dashboard or some type of clear KPIs that they're coming back to you with. There is opportunity for them to maybe inflate a little bit. I think about kind of it in 2 ways, not just the vanity metrics, but also the shadow metrics, right? So we talked about shadow AI, which is this concept of your employees using AI behind the scenes without you knowing about it. We're going to talk even more about that in our 6th episode. So stay tuned for compliance, my favorite topic. I think there's kind of that too, where you're going to not necessarily have the full capture if you're not aware of what your team is doing. And that's why when we talk about the priority list and this idea of being strategic, it becomes so important, because you might have AI initiatives, but your employees might have their own AI initiatives. And so how are you measuring those? And another kind of vanity metric that I would think about too is the rework. So sometimes what happens is we're creating a prompt or an agent, and it was effective the first time. And so we grabbed that metric, that first snapshot, right? But then as we went on, it ended up failing, or, we had to go back and we had to rework that agent again and again. Maybe we didn't have proper training on our prompting. And so we're doing a lot of discord back and forth with our AI tool instead of having a really good prompt on the front end that got us to the result more quickly. And so we might be kind of misinterpreting the initial time saved and only looking at that one measurement point versus looking at it kind of multiple times throughout how we're using that tool or interacting with that process to see, like, did it sustain?
Yeah.
So if we had this agent that we thought, oh, this is great, it's saving us 30 minutes every single time we do this task. Okay, is it truly every single time, or was it that first couple of times that you used the task?
And because AI can hallucinate. So
it can, yeah.
Still can hallucinate, and it likes to tell you what you like to hear.
It sure does.
So there's a lot of aspects of that as time goes on, as it starts to, and it's getting better. The large language models are getting better. Gemini 3 just came out, which is crazy. Yeah. And Claude just released a new, more accurate, like, these models are going to continuously improve. But there is, I think, something that people are not thinking about is that they're going to have to go back and check. Mm-hmm. It's not just, hey, implement this one thing. We built this we built this agent, we built this custom GPT to run this through and make sure that has to be checked on an ongoing basis. So there's maintenance.
Yeah, there is maintenance. I know people really want to just be able to hit that easy button and be like one and done. But just like any other business practice, we need to be staying on top of our processes and continuing to measure for success. Yeah.
And now with the math, who's responsible for the metrics? Because that, there's a lot of gaps in that in companies all the time. You come up with great metrics and you're looking at them, but no one feels like they own it or are fully responsible to that metric.
Yeah. I think just like, I am a big believer that every role in your organization can and should have KPIs. And I think similarly, as you're thinking about bringing AI into your organization and trying to get toward a full adoption, meaning every person on your team is using AI in a capacity in their role as part of their daily workflow. Like it's part of their practices. It's not just like we've got a cool AI tool and we use it sometimes, It's just like we actually work differently. To me, that's AI adoption. That's AI integration. When every employee in your team is working differently than they did before with AI assistance. And so as you think about that as maybe being your long-term goal, not something that's going to happen overnight, I would start to think about like, okay, how do we trickle this down? So again, from a leader or owner level, we want to have those higher strategic level goals and KPIs that we're measuring. Financial for sure, and then adoption, like we talked about, right? And kind of success of your pilots. Mm-hmm. As leaders, you should be kind of identifying what are those core AI initiatives that we're working toward. And so each one of those initiatives should have their own metric that you're tracking and probably a couple of them within, right? That you're looking at. So like I said, what's the ROI on that particular metric? How successful is it? What's the time savings that you're getting back from it? And then you need to be paying attention to what's the cost, right? Because don't forget to back out that cost when we're calculating our ROI. And so we should be looking at all of those things. But then on an individual level, as you think about like now the department down, right? Just like we would have our sales leaders be responsible for their sales team metrics, right? You may choose to have an AI champion that's helping you kind of move those projects along. We talked about kind of that project management role that they can play in it. And so there may be some kind of more project management like AI metrics that they're responsible for. And then you can for sure get into the individual level too, where let's say I'm a customer service rep and part of my job is customer satisfaction. If I'm utilizing AI as a part of my customer experience, maybe I am responsible as the person who's, utilizing that AI tool or process or workflow to be tracking it, to be paying attention to it, to be raising the red flag if there are any concerns up to my leader. And so I do believe that there's a place for everyone to have a part in it. But I think the overall architecture of what's being measured, what priorities we're having, that should still very much come from our leadership level.
Awesome. If you can measure it, you can improve it.
Yeah.
But if you're not measuring it, you won't improve it. But in the measuring of it, especially in the initiatives of AI, it's going to take your team and your team culture to accomplish this. They're not going to like it. They're going to be afraid. They're afraid for their jobs. They're afraid for their futures.
Before we carry on with the episode, let's give a shout out to one of our sponsors.
First, let's get real. You're great at building roofs, but are you great at building a steady stream of leads? That's where Job Nimbus Marketing comes in. They know the roofing industry inside and out, and they'll help you dominate Google, Facebook, reputation management, and everything in between. If you want more quality leads, more booked jobs, and more growth, visit the link in the description or the sponsors page on the Roofing Success Podcast website. I talk to contractors every day that feel stuck. Not because they're not working hard, but because they're missing the structure to growth without chaos. Or their culture's falling apart because their team's unclear, unaligned, or just burned out. And when change hits, they're reacting instead of leading because time and priorities aren't under their control.
Day 41 Thrive helps to fix that with proven strategies for growth, culture, and leadership that actually work. Ready to thrive beyond the storm? Visit the link in the description or visit the Roofing Success Podcast website on the sponsors page to start your journey today. If you and your team aren't trained on AI yet, you're already falling behind. Competitors using AI are generating more leads, closing jobs faster, and running leaner. The AI roofing revolution gives your team the training to implement AI so you stay ahead, not scramble to catch up. Don't wait until you're losing. Get trained now at the link in the description or the sponsors page of the Roofing Success Podcast website.
This is the number one way AI is going to kill your company. So you may be thinking of it as some new chat GPT is going to come out. The robots are going to start installing the roofs, all of these things. That's not the case right now. So what is the case is that your team does not adopt it, or your team fights back, or your team is worried about their job. So as you're bringing in these AI initiatives to improve the process, get some time savings, some cost savings, they're worried about their livelihood. So today we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about overcoming the AI trust gap, talk about building culture and communication around change. My name is Jim Aline. I'm the host of the Roofing Success Podcast. I'm here with Rosalind Burgess from the AI Roofing Revolution.
Thanks. Hi, Jim.
How's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you?
This is your stuff right here. This is your
This
fave.
is my jam.
This is your fave.
Yep, this is my jam.
People.
People.
Yeah.
I do like people. And I like people to be able to be happy at work. It feels really critical. We spend a lot of our time at our jobs. And so, that's kind of where my career passion started.
Not for long, because AI is going to take over everything.
Everything.
So
yeah, it's going to replace everyone, especially.
Everyone should be worried, especially your employees, because you're going to try to replace them as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm glad we're starting here, right? Because I think that's the vibe, right? That's the feeling that people have. That's the fear that people have, is that AI is going to replace them. We talk about and joke about how AI is going to replace me, and my job and all that I do. But I think more realistically, the people who and the companies who are using and adopting AI are the people who are going to replace the people and companies that are not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really what's going on. So how do we've been talking about implementing AI in your roofing or contracting or home services business.
Yeah.
How do we get there? We've talked about metrics. We've talked about what AI initiatives you should do next, right? Doing SWOT analysis, determining what's next. We talked about some AI math, how to measure it. Now let's talk about how to get your team to buy in.
Yeah.
How do you start the conversation off? How do you start to talk about AI internally without triggering that fear that you're trying to get rid of their job?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, the first piece is really understanding what that trust gap is. Like, what are we talking about, Jim? When we say that. And, one thing, a study I like to kind of harken back to is Workday did a great study earlier this year where they found that 62% of owners and leaders felt like they were confident in how they were going to bring AI to their companies responsibly, and 55% of employees said the same. And so there's a gap there, right? There's a gap in trust. And I think a big starting place for that gap, where that gap becomes a cavern, if you will, is when we don't communicate with our employees. If we don't give them a clear picture of where we're going and how they are a part of that and what you see, what happens in that unknown, uncertain, ambiguous place, that waiting period. Have you ever felt like you're waiting for something to come and you're in limbo?
Yeah.
Do you feel good in your body when you're in limbo? Usually not, right? That's a yucky space for people to be in. But we're doing that in our companies right now by not talking about AI in a way that's clear and consistent and with a plan and purposeful. It's like, oh, we're going to try AI. And then what does that mean? Okay, cool. Am I going to get any training? I know of a particularly very large supplier distributor in our industry that put rules out for their team members on how they could use AI. And said, you can only use our stuff. Don't use any other AI products. And then did zero training. And it's just like, oh no, that's maybe not how you want to go about talking about AI to your team members, because it leaves a lot of confusion. And so I think it starts with really communication and how planful you are being in your communication to your employees.
So what's some advice to leaders in a company, whether owners or general managers or C-suite people, in how to bring employees into that conversation?
Yeah. Well, I think it really should start again with strategy. I know we've been talking about that again and again and again in the series, but how can you tell your employees where you're trying to go with your AI initiatives if you personally haven't taken time to map that out and think about it? I'm not saying you need to have like a full detailed 100-page report of your strategic plan before you start the conversation with your employees. But I do think you need to start asking yourself some really simple questions like, how is AI going to be a part of your overall business strategy in 2026 and 2027 and 2028? Like, start to think ahead a little bit, but especially for the next year, thinking about what is it going to mean for you? Helping it distill down to some simpler actions and tasks that you want them to participate in and be a part of. So they need to understand how you want them to use AI in their jobs, right? How do you want them to interact with those tools? And they need to understand the guardrails, the banks of the river we talk about, right? Of here's how we don't want you to use AI in your job. And this is how we want you to talk about AI in your job. You know, sometimes we talk about that fear word a lot, and this concept that, you know, if your employees don't feel like they can be honest about using AI, that's a problem. In fact, we teach the opposite at AI Roofing Revolution. When we're going through our trainings, people come into the classes and they get a chance to share use cases and how they're trying AI in their roles, how they're applying it to their workflows. And it becomes super important because the ideas that you have, even though our jobs might be different, they can really spur a lot of creativity and collaboration. And, you know, what we don't want are those shadow AI cases where you're working on something and I'm working on something and they're really similar, but we're both individually problem solving when that could be a company objective that we're working on together. And now it can be applied across the organization.
Yeah.
So I think starting by identifying what your strategy is from an AI standpoint allows you to cast a better vision and invite people to participate in achieving those outcomes, versus just kind of saying like, oh, we're going to add AI and, you know, go full blown on ChatGPT, go get it. You know, what policies do you have? We're going to talk about that more, but I think you have to start by giving them some clear expectations. And then I really believe that one of the most important things you can do is give them the why. You've heard me talk about this. It's anybody who's done coaching with me or has had conversations with me in terms of communication knows about my give them the latte. And so this give them the latte concept is if I go into a coffee shop and I ask for a latte, and that person behind the counter starts talking to me about what's important to them. Like, yeah, sure. But I had to hire this many people today and our beans are on back order and it's just been such a week. And, I'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I feel really bad. But also I'd kind of be like, okay, but can I have my latte? Right. But if that same person behind the counter said, oh, Rosalind, you're here. Like I got that extra whip on here for you because I know you like that, which is right. I do. A little caramel drizzle. And, I hope you're doing great. And I want you to have a great day. That experience for me is very different, right? she's approaching me in my why and what matters to me. And I really believe, Simon Sinek talks about the power of the why and their why. And I really believe that when you're thinking about AI, it's the same concept, that you want to be thinking about what's in it for them. What's their why? Why is AI and adopting AI important to them? I have a Lean Six Sigma manufacturing background. And when we were doing lean training, you never wanted to lean somebody out of a job because it makes them resistant to any of your lean principles and your practices that you're trying to do to improve your business. Because why, if I know that the goal is just to take me out, why would I want to participate in that? I'm going to instead do the opposite, right? A kind of similar concept, I see this in the law industry, for example, where they've done hourly billing forever, right? And so now it becomes resistant to be more efficient because my rate is based on my per hour rate. So why would I want to adopt tools or practices that are more effective? Well, now some of the best law firms are actually going toward more of a project-based rate because they want to be able to show that the quality of their work is there. And so again, thinking about your employees, if they feel like the outcome is that you just want to replace them and get rid of their job altogether and you never want to have employees again, while I can appreciate that sentiment on a leadership level of it is hard to lead people. That's not a secret, right? That is a challenge in businesses. But that's also the gift that we get to have as leaders. A really good leader embraces that challenge. They work through those challenges. And so I don't think your goal should be trying to get to 0 employees. I think this is kind of when you've gotten through every single item on your someday list and you've accomplished everything you want to do in your business, then go ahead and find me, go ahead and start scaling back people. But until you've accomplished all that you want to accomplish, you probably still need most of the team. Yeah, you're going to need some people. Yeah.
And AI in today's environment is not, it doesn't work without people.
It's not there.
It's not there it's not at a place where it can replace people.
Right.
It can replace some repetitive tasks. It can do it has functionality, but I think a lot of, it's not to the place where it's can replace people. Oh, who knows? Maybe there's an update to something and, Chat GPT or something, and all of a sudden it can take over everything. But at this point, it can't.
Yeah.
And the best uses of AI are a human interacting with AI, using AI, even if they're not using it for the exact outcome. Mm-hmm. From a marketing perspective, from an ideation perspective, hey, ChatGPT, write me some hooks for this social media post that I'm going to do. You might not even use one of those hooks, but it may spark the idea in what hook you do use, right? Now, other things you need to be more precise. You'll need it to be more precise in analyzing or job costing and doing things that are more precise. So it may not spark the idea, but then you need precision there. So you need a person involved to make sure that it's precise, right?
Yeah.
And so,
well, we talked about in a past episode too, Jim, this concept of human in the loop. So even if we get to a place where you've got AI checking AI, right?
Yes.
Doing that precision work, and you've got all of those pieces in place, at what point is you probably still have some type of oversight, as we talked about kind of this idea of imagining the future of AI and kind of reimagining the org chart. It's likely in the future that we will have people who are responsible for kind of overseeing AI agents, AI tools, and that, management in your organization might look different. And I really do believe that we're going to continue to desire human interaction, those human touches. And so I think it might look different. And your roles will rearrange and, might work differently. But if you've got good quality people on your team that have done a great job for you and in your organization, those are people that we should be looking to upskill, that we should be looking to bring along with us, and hopefully looking to give back to them. If in the past you've worked 5-day work weeks, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that, hey, maybe someday you could get to a place where your employees are working 3 days a week instead. And, they've been a part of that journey and they deserve that. Now, if your major headache and your major reason for saying like, oh, I just can't wait to replace everyone on my team, to me, like just setting all of the AI stuff aside, that's like a refinery conversation, right? Like that's a people leadership and people management problem. You should probably be terming those people out of your organization, or they need more training and leadership support. Like if that's your headache and your rub and your reason for, never having employees again, you probably have some leadership lift to do.
Yeah, definitely. What are some other things that they can think about around this?
Yeah, I think really, again, coming back to what your vision is for how you want your organization to look, because it may look different as you've gone through that AI strategy and planning. We talked about kind of AI opportunity in that conversation when we were talking about the SWOT analysis. So if you're thinking about your AI opportunity, your business might actually start to look a little different than it originally did. And I think you should bring your employees in on that conversation and help them, let them help be a part of that conversation. Again, the right people. I would also be really careful about flavor of the daying your employees. So don't dive right into all of the different AI tech tools and, adding all the stuff. And we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And we're going to, change the world. I'm excited for you. They're excited for you. But they've also probably gone through that fatigue of, changing objectives and priorities. And so your employees are going to be more likely to adopt and adapt if you are responsible in how you're bringing AI solutions to your company.
Yeah, and that's the big thing on takeaway from this episode is be responsible. Make sure you have a plan. Communicate that plan effectively. Then once your team is focused and aligned, now you can work on keeping AI used responsibly in your company. And that's what we're going to talk about on the next episode, which is the AI governance and security.
Yeah.
Because boy, your data is at risk in a lot of ways when using these AI tools. Your employees are giving all your company secrets away and you don't even know it. What if the adoption of AI has led to, just in a day-to-day basis, your company's using ChatGPT, using Gemini, using Claude, and all of a sudden, your information is on the internet for all of your competitors to find and use in a way to help their businesses.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about AI governance and security. My name is Jim Aline, the host of the Roofing Success Podcast. I'm here with Rosalind Burgess from the AI Roofing Revolution.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Man, this is the part that no one thinks about.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like, hey, get the tool.
Yeah.
Use the LLM.
Have fun.
How are the LLMs trained? Well, on your data, the data that you give them.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are some of the first things that a company should think about in terms of AI governance and security?
Yeah. So I want to just start by reminding people, in the first episode, we talked about how ChatGPT now has over 800 million users. And again, as a frame of reference, in the United States, we have roughly 340 million people. Okay. So the likelihood that your employees are using some type of AI tool right now is very, very, very high. And if you don't have any type of policy, you've had zero communication with your employees about how you want them to use AI, then the kind of very natural next step is that they are using AI in ways that you may not want them to be using AI. And so the very first thing I would do if I were an owner is I would adopt an AI policy. And so in that policy, I would want to communicate what our expectations are around AI and provide them with, again, kind of guardrails or banks of the river for how you want your employees to be using and adding AI to their day. one of the big things to consider is that, like you said, all of these free AI tools that we're experimenting with and we're trying and are so fun, a lot of them, almost all of them, are starting from a place of being trained on your data and trained on your use. And now as LLM companies like OpenAI and Claude are kind of going into what we call the browser wars, meaning they have browsers that you can be utilizing their LLM technology on top of kind of your search or navigation function in your day-to-day internet use. They're gathering all of that information. So before, when you were just putting in and feeding in your potentially your customer information, what's known as personal identifiable information, or PII, those are things like phone numbers, social security numbers, addresses. So this could be as simple as an employee saying like, help me rewrite this draft to my customer, Susie, right? And they're providing that customer's information. And now that proprietary or that customer's personal identifiable information is now been exchanged without proper guardrails. Or maybe you have an employee that's saying like, oh, I want to super helpfully rewrite this SOP. They've taken your standard operating procedure, which is your confidential intellectual property. In how you run your business is your intellectual property as a company. So now they've taken that SOP, they've done a very thoughtful, good intentioned, well-meaning thing, use ChatGPT to rewrite that. Well, now OpenAI has that information and it can be used to call back to. So now roofing company or whatever company down the street is looking for an SOP, and your process could be helping that next company create their standard operating procedure. So it can happen really quickly and really easily. You know, I think there was a report that just came out that today, like 79% of data leaks at an enterprise level are coming from AI use. So it's big. It's really important to be paying attention to these things. And I always just kind of say, remember that your tools that are free, you're paying for them. You're just paying for them with your data and your company information, your intellectual property.
Yeah. There's a funny saying about that. Like if you're not buying the product, you are the product.
Yeah. I love that. Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you're the product with these services.
Yeah.
And so, what are some of the ways that a company can protect their data, enhance their privacy, and keep their intellectual property safe?
Yeah, so it starts with your data settings, for sure. And so what's interesting is that for a lot of the companies or AI tools that you might be using, it's different than what's intuitive to us. So I think for a lot of us, we're used to looking for some type of security setting, right, to protect us. And so we'd go into security, we'd change some type of setting, and then it's safe, right? It's secure. Well, this is different when it comes to an LLM because, again, what we're actually talking about is data. And so usually I'd be looking in some type of, in the tool that I'm looking for, in the settings, you're going to go to some type of data and storage area. And that's where you're going to see the option to turn off the opportunity, like ChatGPT does this, where it's like, make the model better for everyone. For everyone. Oh, it's just so you'll be so helpful, won't you? That's where you're saying, do you want to give all of your secrets away, or would you like to keep them for yourself? So you want to make sure that's turned off. You can do that again, just go into your settings gear there on ChatGPT, go into your settings gear, go to data, and that's where you'll see the option to turn off, make the model better for everyone. So usually it's language like that, something around improve the model, make the model better, et cetera. That should indicate to you that you are sharing information. I will say too that thinking about, again, kind of this concept of are you paying for it, but also coming back to the kind of parent companies of some of these products. So OpenAI, for example, the LLM, which is ChatGPT, pretty synonymous for AI now. They started as an open source model. So they've been meant to kind of create their product based on people's data. Whereas an organization like Microsoft or Google, they've actually started as enterprise first businesses. So Microsoft's Copilot and Google's Gemini are going to have some more inherent security measures because they were first meant to be business enterprise software. I would say probably the same concept is true when you're thinking about like the AI tools within your existing tech stack that maybe is getting added in. Yeah. But don't just assume that. I would ask, when you are utilizing a product and now all of a sudden it has a new AI feature, you have to be diligent because not everybody is slowing down to think about the AI security pieces of this. And so they could be adding this tool to, this company that you've worked with and it's your software provider, they could be adding to their tech stack without doing their own diligence. So there's kind of an extra layer of risk here that we need to be proactive about. And so we need to be asking, like, what are your terms of service? What are you doing with my data? Mm-hmm. What happens when I interact with this tool? Where does my information go? And so as you're adding tools, even if you're not changing your tech stack, as you see AI tools become available to you, you need to be diligent there too.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't think about that because a lot of these softwares, what they're using as an underlying layer is ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. That's the underlying layer for a lot of the tools. So if your CRM or ERP is starting to add AI options into the functionality of it, it could be using that. And hopefully they're dealing with that on an enterprise level.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Yeah.
Right. And they have a lot of data, like a CRM they have a lot of data that can be used in some pretty crazy ways. So, which would help your business as like the AI learns how all of the, roofing and contracting companies work. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I can improve your flow based on this company's flow over here.
Yeah.
Because you both use the same software. Like it's a potential but if you're the company that's doing well.
Yeah. Kind of unfortunate, right? I don't necessarily want to make all of my competitors better.
So it might be good for people who are not doing well in business that all of the good competitors' data is being shared. Just kidding.
Yeah.
But what are some sample policies and guardrails that a company should put in place?
Yeah. So again, I would come back to making sure that you're protecting your confidential information as a company, your intellectual property. So just making sure that you are, first of all, that you've decided on what you're using as a company for your kind of standard LLM. A lot of us are on Google products already in the roofing industry, and Gemini is great. It's a really well-performing tool. If your employees like to use ChatGPT, I would highly consider investing in some type of business or plus plan because then you're going to have the data protection. The free version that they're using and paying for on their own, again, that's concerns because now that information is going outside of your business. And so they do have business plans that you can add. And so I would start with identifying like what's kind of your standard LLM that you want to use. Again, if you're a Microsoft company, maybe it's Copilot. If you're Google, maybe it's Gemini. Or if you just love ChatGPT yourself and that's what you want to go with, make sure you're going with a business plan so that you have those security protections. So first, start there and make sure your employees understand. The other piece is like if your employees are using ChatGPT or something like that at home, you need to be specific and clear that they are not putting any company information in there, that they're not putting any customer information in there, that they're not putting any personally identifiable information in there. Same with and like this is just good education and good stewardship in general for your employees. They should know to maybe not put in their kids' names and information and, just some of those best practices for internet security anyway, that they can be thinking about. When we do our AI Foundations course, one of the first things that we talk about is AI security. And then the next thing that we talk about is what we call AI etiquette. And what I mean by that is we're checking to see, did the AI hallucinate? We understand our responsibility. One of the big questions that I get a lot that sometimes comes up in the AI space is, whose fault is it? So if I'm utilizing AI in my company and we've said, like, this is our policy, go for it, use it as much as you can, and the AI makes a mistake, who's responsible for that mistake? And so your employees need to understand that they are responsible. And you as a company need to understand that you're responsible to your customers, to your shareholders, stakeholders.
Yeah.
In how you're using that too. So I think talking about responsibility and ownership is a really important element of that conversation and that policy. And then outcomes, what's going to happen if something does go wrong, and having clear expectations, and then how employees can report concerns or problems. When we talked about in the last episode, as we were talking about AI math and measurement. One of the things you might want to consider measuring is like how satisfied your customers are with the outcome, and also how happy your employees are with their use of that tool. And so making sure that they have a way to communicate about AI use as a standard part of your policy, I think is really important. Where do I raise my concerns? Who should I go to? Who do I talk to about that? That just gives them a clear path and ensures that they understand how and where to go with those concerns.
Walk me through the AIR fundamentals course.
Yeah. Yep. So in AI Foundations, we go through kind of 5 core topics. So we start with really understanding that AI security, AI etiquette. Then we get into some really good like prompt engineering, and understanding of how AI can be used across our roles in our organizations. Then we go through adding AI to your day. So we look at workflows and understanding how in your own day-to-day practices, you can gain some personal efficiency. I think AI is very good at personal efficiency. So that's kind of why we make it our second bucket. Same with like content creation and content generation. Then we get into using AI to analyze. So we go through Analyze with AI. And that's where we walk through how to use AI in order to do data analysis in your role, how to use it to generate reporting, and really kind of go deep from a strategic level. And then we do what we call simplify with AI. And so we take this concept of really complex information, complex ideas, and using AI to help us simplify those ideas and communicate more effectively. It kind of flows really nicely in our industry where we've got a lot of like product knowledge or manuals or code and stuff like that we're working through, and how do we simplify that. It's also great from a training standpoint, which kind of leads into our last session of the foundations, which is advance with AI. And so we teach companies and team members how they can grow in their roles personally and professionally utilizing AI.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. If you followed this series, hopefully this provides you a roadmap to get started, to get this journey started, because AI is here, whether you like it or not. November 30th, 2022, it changed.
Yeah.
Everything changed when ChatGPT came to, put its product out on the marketplace to the masses. And so check out the AI Roofing Revolution, subscribe to the Roofing Success channel. See you guys soon.
Take care.
Thank you for tuning into the Roofing Success Podcast. For more valuable content, visit roofingsuccesspodcast.com. While there, check out our sponsors for exclusive offers, shop for merchandise, and sign up for our newsletter for industry updates and tips. Also, join the Roofing Success Facebook group to connect with other professionals and stay updated on the latest trends. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. Your support helps us continue to bring you top industry insights. The website link is in the description. Thanks for listening.